Hello again YouTube, and welcome back to Just Get a Tesla. And today we're going to try and answer a question. Model 3 versus Model Y. What's best for your needs? And yes, I am lucky enough to have both cars currently sat outside my house. That is the Getmobile, my Model Y all-wheel drive long range, and this is my loaner Model 3 Performance, which Tesla Aberdeen have very kindly given me for the weekend, and all I can say is, oh boy, it's fast. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel and hit the bell icon, make sure that you do so that you get to see when I go hooning this thing around Aberdeenshire and doing some road testing, just how performance is the performance. But that's on another video. This one is about, well, what do you do if you can't decide on how much space do you need? Because the Model Y is definitely the bigger car, but isn't the Model 3 enough for most people? Let's go and have an explore and a wander around them. I suppose the first one is the two cars are quite clearly differently shaped. So the Model Y has been described by unkind people as a Model 3 that has basically been photocopied and they've stretched it a little bit. And I suppose it's fair. It's basically a similar kind of length, it's just higher. And yeah, okay, I get that. But there is a really important point, which is that complaints in the past about Tesla being a bit photocopy and they all look the same, they no longer all look the same. These cars look completely different to each other, whether it's at the front or whether it's at the back, and I do mean completely different. There is a design philosophy change which Tesla have adopted, so that the new Model Y has gone very cyber and the Model 3 has gone probably traditional Tesla, the way that the Model S used to look and the Model 3 when it first came out. They've just adjusted it. Both cars are quite similar in terms of the way that the wheels have been designed. So both of them have got plastic inserts. Mine is running on 19s and the Performance is running on 20s with, as you can see, shiny red calipers inside. What else do I have to say? I think from a design perspective, when I first saw the new Model Y Juniper, I didn't quite get it, and I did stand shooting video inside Tesla Edinburgh saying, isn't the 3 a better looking car? I actually disagree now. There is something really, really pretty about the new Y. And that's not to say that the 3 isn't a good looking car, because it really is. I like the lines, and it looks quite good here in this black, although personally I wouldn't get a black car. I do like the white interior, but of course you can have that on either of them. But you take my point. There is just something mean and aggressive about the Y, which the 3 just doesn't quite have, although it is mean. So first of all, I think we should probably have a look at interior space, and let's look at the bigger car first. Okay, so this is my Model Y. I am not the tallest person in the world, but what is interesting about it in here is obviously you've got a single piece panorama roof. You've got absolutely bags of space. I've got the seat set the way that I would have it, and how can I put this? The real difference is the seats are up on a riser in the Model Y, and in the Model 3 they're not. So these are just sat on the floor. You really do feel lower down in the 3 compared to the Y. Although what really makes it, of course, in this Performance model is the fact that it has got these fantastic bucket seats. And I do mean fantastic. These seats are so good that if somebody wants to crash one of these, so that I can buy the seats from the scrapper and then swap them for the admittedly improved versus the previous car Model Y seats, but that'd be a good thing. These seats in here are really good, but these are absolutely fantastic. So let's start off with interior space. So I have got the seat inside this Model Y set exactly where I would have it. I'm not the tallest person in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I've got absolutely acres and acres of room, and you can get your feet underneath. There's masses of room there, and of course acres and acres and acres of headroom. And if you don't have quite enough room, you can electrically recline the seat back even further so that you can sprawl. I'm quite good at sprawling. All I need now is somebody to be feeding me grapes while I am sat here sprawled in my Tesla Model Y magnificence. Let's go and swap into the Model 3. And again, the seat is set into the right position for me in the front, and the back, well, you can already tell there is less room in here. And okay, so we have got, did I actually bang my head slightly there? Yes, I did. But it's not bad in here. It's not cramped in here, and you've still got the huge roof. Admittedly, there is now a centre bit, which there isn't in the Model Y. But look, I've still got absolutely acres of legroom. There's a bit less room underneath the seats, a bit less to be able to get your feet in, just basically because the seats aren't up off the floor the way that they are in the Model Y. That just gives you that bit of extra space. Also, these seats don't actually recline the way that they do in the new Model Y, but it doesn't really make this feel confined. Okay, so I bumped my head a little bit when I was getting in on this, but that's really because I think that I'm so used to getting into a Y that I'd forgotten that it's a little bit lower down. But look, there's acres and acres and acres of space. Even when I'm sat all the way reclined, there's acres and acres of space. So it's still a big, comfortable place to sit. And if you're looking at this from a family perspective, I'm sure the interior of the 3 isn't really going to make people complain too loudly. If you're carrying 4 adults, I have no reason at all to think that you can't fit 4 people like me inside this car. And again, a fair bit of space. So honestly, for me, I think it's just a question of how much flexibility do you need. And let's talk about the real difference between the 3 and the Y, which of course is the rear, where the Y is a hatch and the 3 is not. Now, I've got to give Tesla credit though. Although it's that sun is super bright today. There is an absolute acre of space in there. We're going to put a load of bags and things in here in a minute. Okay, we are going to put a whole load of bags in here, but there's space under there for charging cables. I actually never keep my charging cables there. I keep mine in the frunk, but we'll have a look at that in a second. And then if we go into the Model Y, you've just got an awful lot more space. An awful lot more space. And of course, you've got the space underneath, which that is bigger than it is under here because it's a bigger car. So I don't think, to be honest, that sun. Right, hang on. I've got my hand now shading it. I don't think that it is a question of there being huge differences in internal space, although there absolutely is a huge difference. It's the flexibility of the hatchback, which is why I've got a Y and not a 3, because the hatch over the boot on the saloon does make a real difference in terms of flexibility. This video is brought to you by Jawa, the ultimate destination for Tesla accessories, and I want to show you the under-screen invisible station which I've got installed here in my Model Y Juniper. It's a fantastic little additional stowage for easy to reach things like sunglasses that you might need at any given time. It's got a rubberized base, it's ratcheted so that it's nice and easy to control, and it just clips on behind the screen. It even gives you additional power sockets just behind the top, because one thing that the Model Y is missing is additional USB-C sockets. So this adds them on as well. If you go to jawalife.com using the referral link on the screen below, you'll get a nice discount off the invisible station or anything else you like. So one thing that you can do with the Model Y is put yourself in the boot. It's not exactly a comfortable space, but I do fit inside it. A pity I can't video the thing opening while I'm on my phone, but and it's not exactly the things that I do for YouTube. It's not exactly easy getting in and out, but you can at least get in and out. I suspect I'm not going to be very happy trying to climb into the back of there. Oh, I don't know actually. Oh, hello. Okay, I definitely do fit in the back. And also, can I just say, look, I love this, right? Speakers on the rear shelf of a car. It just reminds me of when I was somewhat younger and driving around in, I don't want to say hot hatches, because let's be honest, that was a lie. I never had a hot hatch. But driving around in hatchbacks where what you would do is, instead of spending money on fixing the car and making it reliable, you spend it on terrible distorting sound systems that basically make your ears bleed. I like that, but if I wanted to, I could shut the trunk and I'd be all right in here. I wouldn't be happy, but if you need to kidnap somebody, there is good news. You can have either the Model 3 or the Model Y. As well as the fact that these two cars now look completely different, the way that they are built is also completely different. So my Model Y is built in Berlin and it has gigacastings at the front and rear. What is a gigacasting? Well, instead of having 100 and something parts, it's reduced down to a very small number of parts, where you are essentially machine stamping a huge piece of metal and incorporating that as the entire front and rear assembly of the car. It makes the car easier to build and more flexible in terms of design. The Model 3 over here is built in Shanghai and they are not using gigacastings for the Model 3. Similarly, in America, 3s don't have gigacasting, neither does the S and the X. They're only really using it on the Model Y and the Cybertruck. I'm not quite sure why they haven't yet rolled that out. Similarly, with the new 4680 batteries that we heard an awful lot about, what happened to those? We're not getting those on either of these because these both have the long range pack. They're both using LG 2170 cells, albeit with a slightly different setup because this is European and this is Chinese, but in essence it's the same technology. What does that mean? Well, 2170 battery cells are really good at delivering high amounts of power. They're also a little bit more reliable because these are NCM, nickel, cobalt, manganese batteries, as opposed to the NCA, nickel, cobalt, aluminum batteries, aluminum batteries that you get in North America. Those batteries seem to degrade a little quicker than these ones. That's good news if you're buying in Europe. Whilst we're looking at the fronts of the car, let's have a look at the Frunk. What I love about Tesla is that you actually get proper usable space under the front, and you just don't get that on cars from so many other legacy manufacturers where they are building cars on a production line where they have to put something under here because that's how their machinery is set up. So you get a motor inverter stack or something filling the space. There's nowhere to put your gubbins like charging cables. Whereas with Tesla, you get that. I think that is probably a smaller space than you get in the Model Y, albeit mine is full of stuff which we're going to have to discard out onto the lawn just to make a bit more space. Oh, love this cable. But you get the idea. There is definitely more space inside the Y than there is inside the 3. The other thing that they have changed on this car, and I think this is quite a neat feature, is this little plug which basically lets you drain water and other things out. So you can have a party, fill this car in the front with water and ice, and then stick beer inside it, which you can't do in this one. I'm back inside the Model 3, and let's talk about the obvious difference between this car and the Model Y that it sat next to. This is what in Europe we'd call a saloon, certainly in the UK we'd call a saloon. I know it's a sedan in North America. It's got a trunk or a boot, whatever you want to call it, which is separate from the cabin. Whereas that, whilst Tesla call it an SUV, I think instead of being sports utility vehicle, it's more like a crossover. It's not really an SUV. It's not got the same kind of ground clearance that you might get on a what I would call a full-size SUV. I think what I call a full-size SUV is mid-size if you're North American, because everything is gargantuan. But there is a philosophy difference between having it so that the luggage compartment opens up and you can get a little bit more boomy noise from it on that car versus this, where, sorry, the sun is still getting in my eyes, but in this car everything is kept separate. So you get the executive feel in this car that you don't get in the other car, just from the fact that this is a saloon slash sedan and that isn't. If that's important to you, and for a lot of buyers it certainly used to be, then it's really a no-brainer. The Model 3 does practically everything that the Model Y does, and gives you that extra level of refinement with the separation of the luggage compartment and the cabin. But actually, there isn't a lack of refinement in that car either. And the one thing that Tesla have really worked on since they started selling cars in Europe is refinement. The build quality of both of these cars is night and day better than even cars a couple of years ago. So both of these are 2025 cars. And the build quality, believe me, is significantly better in practically every way versus earlier cars. So I test drove a 2020 Model 3 dual motor a little while back. I test drove a 2024, what was that one? Single motor, I think, Model 3. And that was obviously the new Highland shape that had just been done. The build quality between that car and the 2020 was already a huge improvement. And this again is just that further bit of refinement, because this is now the performance and it's got these even better seats. The Model Y, massively better than the previous car in every way. And I've been driving this car, even on the suspension on the firmest setting and the acceleration on insane mode. This car is no less comfortable than my old Model Y was. And that didn't have the firmer sports suspension, it just had rattly suspension. So they're both good and they're both comfortable, and they will both get you from end to end of whichever kind of road trip that you're doing without any kind of questions. You don't need to worry about planning charging stops. This car will do it for you. You don't need to worry about running out of power, because both of these cars are very efficient, although maybe not this one the way that I've been driving it today. But hey. So it's just a question of, do you want a hatchback and do you want to be sat higher up? That's all it is. If you don't want either of those things particularly, the Model 3 is the better car. It handles better, it rides better, it is more fun to be able to drive. For most people, the Model 3 is all that you're going to need. It's just that if you need that bit of flexibility, the Model Y is going to be better. And that's kind of it, I think. I don't really... Actually, we'll do that in the next. Here, once again, inside the boot slash trunk, whatever you want to call it, of the Model 3. And I've been using Grok to pull together the different sizes of these two vehicles, which I'm going to put up on screen over there. But the problem is, it's quite difficult to actually measure them, because most reviewers do tend to come up with different ways of measuring the space. They're not measuring like for like, or they're measuring including the space underneath the floor, or a variety of other things. So I thought that the best way that we could test this is using bags. I've got quite a lot of suitcases and other bags. Let's see how many we can stuff inside. So the first thing we're going to do is a luggage test. So what can you get into the trunk? Well, I've already preloaded something into the front of here. So if we open that up, under the bonnet slash frunk, whatever you want to call it, I can fit a airline carry-on. So this will go as a carry-on on any of the, even the cheapo airlines in Europe. That's 117 litres of space. This is 88 litres of space. It'll go in here as well, exactly the same. So you can get a carry-on bag in the front of either car. Good, let's see how much space we can get in the back. So let's imagine that you are going off on a family holiday and you've got a Model 3 rather than a Model Y. Well, you don't really need to worry about compromising space. So I've already shown that you can get an airline carry-on in the front. You can actually get a somewhat bigger bag than this in the front and still have a bit of space up the side to be able to put bits and bobs in. So one bag has gone in there. And then if we go into the back, so I've loaded these in and I'm a little surprised as to just how much stuff you can actually get in here. So I've got this big old hold all. I've got another airline carry-on. I've got that size of airline carry-on. I have got a pretty big suitcase. I've got an even bigger suitcase, and then under the floor I've still got this other carry-on as well. So if I go back and get this bag, which I have carelessly discarded over here, so inside this Model 3, which remember, can't see, which remember is a saloon slash sedan, which is supposed to be not particularly big, but all of these fit inside it and you've still got room for people. That's pretty impressive, really. An awful lot of stuff. And if you got to the point where you were carrying less people but wanted to carry more stuff, you can fold the seats down. Okay, it's not as flexible as it is in the Model Y, but it won't be because of the kind of car it is. But look, you've now got all of that space. Admittedly, this is solid up here and you can't change it because of course it's got its speakers on the back, so you can't change that, but you can at least recline these seats, and then you've got an impressive amount of room to be able to put things in. But of course in the Juniper it's on a completely different scale. So we've already got a significant amount of space. Let's just pull the rubber mat out so that you can see it easier. Huge amount of space under the floor, and there's also another smaller space there as well. And if you need a bit more space, fold the seats down. Oh, hello, what's going? Both of them, please, both sides. Oh, that's sun again. And then all you can do then is take the rear cover off, and suddenly you've got an absolutely, again, sorry about the sun, but you've got, there we go, yeah, an absolutely enormous amount of space. And what I like about the changes they've made to this car is you can even put the cover under here, like this. See, it stows away underneath, and then you have literally got, well, a van, okay? An absolute van of space. And that's the difference. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put this back the way that it was, and then we're going to see not just all of those, but how many other cases we can get into the Y. So onto the Model Y, and well, I've already been defeated. So look, I have got, okay, the carry-on bag, I have got the suitcase and the other suitcase. There's no room to put anything else on the top, but there is of course room under the floor to put the massive double duffel bag, and one of these would fit into the front. But of course there is a party piece, which is take out the load cover. Okay, so I have, ignore that, that's just the rubber mat. I have taken the load cover out, and suddenly look, all of the same bags that went into the Model 3 have gone into here, all of them. But I haven't even got rid of the load cover because that's actually hidden underneath here. So if you pull this out, look, you can see it's actually nestled under there. So everything fits because you can now put these onto their side and then you can stack those as you are doing. In fact, I think I can get even more bags in because of course that was in the front on the Model 3. But you do have to take the load cover off. So the way that I would summarize it basically is, whilst this is definitely less flexible, what's happened in here? This is definitely less flexible. Oh, that sun. Right, should we do all of that again? We won't put this in the edit. Where was I? Okay, so just pretend that I didn't do that. Okay, so if we go into the back of the Model 3, this space is less flexible than a hatchback. Although you can fold the seats, it's less flexible, but it has got more height up to this big metal bar here than you have got underneath the load cover in the Model Y. But of course the Model Y is a hatchback, which means you can load up to the glass line. So what I'm going to do now is I have got another bag, and I've even got some more bags upstairs. So I am going to see exactly how many bags plus people I can get into this car before it screams for mercy. Okay, I think this is the absolute maximum that you can fit in. As you can see, we've stacked it, and there is still space here, okay, and it can't go any further forward because of the headrests, and neither can these. Look, they're not going to go anywhere. But we can now get, and it's a bit of a squish. We can get that carry-on. We can get this carry-on. We can get this carry-on. We can get this absolutely massive suitcase, and that didn't go anywhere at all near that car. It's far too long. And that big suitcase, and this admittedly smaller suitcase, and under here we have got room for the load cover and this great big duffel bag. And if we go around to the front, not only have we got this other hold all in here, but we've also still got our cables. That is the difference. The Model Y just has got more space, a lot more space, and once you take the load cover out, more flexibility. But you've got to give credit to this thing, and I've got to keep doing that because of the sun, but I was impressed as to just how much stuff I could get into the Model 3. So let's go around the front and just sum this up. And that's it really on this one. Let me know in the comments what's better for your needs. The Model 3, smaller, more nimble, more agile, or the Model Y, higher up, a little bit more comfy, a lot more flexible. Let me know, which one have you gone for? I was very clear when I was choosing a Tesla that the Model 3 wasn't quite big enough for me, and I had to get a Model Y, and the decision was so correct that I've now had 2 of them. But for you, I know a Model 3 is probably everything that you need. So let me know in the comments what works best for you, and don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the share icon if you've got some friends who are debating between the 2 of them. I've got more testing of this Model 3 performance to do, so make sure you subscribe to see that, and I will see you back here very soon on Just Get a Tesla.